A new study shows raccoons are evolving and trying their hardest to become our pets. Let me explain.
Now how about I explain? Raccoons wear masks because they might have pulled the feline finesse on humanity. It's what you've probably heard from the news, with researchers saying that an overachieving trash panda might be the next animal to domesticate itself. So much that they're already getting cuter in the process. Domestication doesn't just make animals more tolerant of people, it physically changes them too. With changes like floppy ears, curly tails, smaller teeth, brains, and shorter snout, and one change has folks excited for the future of raccoons. And it's all because of this study. By combing through 19,000 raccoon portraits posted to iNaturalist, the study concluded that the urban raccoon snout size was shorter than their country cousins by 3.6%, possibly because shorter snouts with stronger bites are better at chewing through our trash, and that trash might be how this all started. What people forget is domestication isn't just brute force by humanity. The animal has to make the first move, and with dogs, that move was early wolves scavenging off human leftovers, a habit that favored less fearful, less aggressive wolves. Without their love affair of our food, we wouldn't have dogs, and arguably no animal loves our trash more than a recycle ninja. The Shiesty cat is a survivalist on steroids who easily adjusted to life in the city, pivoting from foraging from 9 to 5 to dumpster dive, and leaving trees for chimneys. Raccoons have hands, free will, and the intellect to use both, which can lead to a sugar bandit hitting a lick on a donut shop and slipping away to do it again. That is, when they don't use the direct approach of just asking for it. Mind you, Stealth Eyes have great memory. She just made a regular for life. They'll take free rides from anywhere, literally. There's more than one case of ring-tailed commuters taking trains, like when a raccoon hopped on a Toronto GO train headed halfway down Ontario, or when another tried hopping on a subway in Spadina Station. Raccoons aren't just built for the city, they're forged by it, and all our efforts to slow them down might have just made them smarter. Toronto spent $31 million on raccoon-proof green garbage bins in 2016, designed specifically to keep the veiled vermin from your trash. The raccoons spent a couple days in false defeat, until a few were caught making the bins, the 30 mil, and the city of Toronto look like a joke. Cause nothing is truly raccoon proof, and many believe that the harder people push to prove otherwise, the more they've accidentally buffed the brain of a bin burglar. In fact, many people have dubbed this excessively street smart variant as the Uber raccoon. So it would seem that like death, taxes, and The Simpsons getting another season, raccoons are inevitable. But before you start fantasizing about naming a litter merchant Rocket, you should probably know, what exactly is a raccoon? Let's take this ride one more time. With Order Carnivora, there's a team cat and a team dog. Team cat feliform has, well, cats, wildcats, hyenas, the mongoose mafia, and a bunch of mammal castrol nature made out of spare parts like the binturong and the fossa. Team dog caniformia has the canines, along with bears, pinnipeds, mustelid crash outs like the honey badger, skunks, and of course, the raccoon. More specifically, the raccoon family is Procyon, and that family reunion has members that you may not have heard of before, like the ringtail, actual name, the kakamisle. Every time I see it, it feels like the first time. The kinkajou, aka the honey bear, but by far my favorite raccoon cousin is not a moonwalking dinosaur. That's just what happens when you put coatis in reverse. If you've been to Mexico, you've definitely seen at least one coatimundi, if not coatimany. And as someone who's been to Mexico, I can assure you that they'll steal your heart along with anything else left unsupervised. It's a habitual hog-nosed thief. And suddenly I'm okay with that. So obviously when it comes to raccoons, it's just genetic, they can't help themselves. But raccoons were the only ones that were able to leave the trenches and make money moves in the city, but how? How did raccoons finesse the infrastructure so well that you honestly forget they're not supposed to be there? You know raccoons are smart, the question is how smart? Yes, a literal Robin Hood isn't just street smart, they sit at a table with some of the brainiest animals in the world. In 1907, two psychologists tried to power scale the intelligence of the raccoon, and to do it, they used Edward Thorndike's puzzle box. In this method, the subject would have to engineer an escape by opening a series of latches to see not only how fast they could accidentally find the answer, but how quickly they could purposely do it again. They both did the same experiment separately, and both came to the conclusion that not only did a bushy-tailed urbanite clear cats and dogs, the raccoon's performance put them right under monkeys. Raccoons are also one of the few animals that passed Aesop's test. In another experiment, 2 out of 8 raccoons were able to figure out that they could reach a marshmallow in a tube with water by dropping stones to raise the level high enough. A third one said, and just sat on the tube and rocked back and forth until it tipped over and the water and marshmallow spilled out, something a team of PhD students did not see coming. It was never a secret raccoons are cognitively capable. Once upon a time in the 20th century, there was a push to use raccoons as lab animals for neuroscientists and psychologists, but that idea lost steam due to the procedural issues of raccoons breaking out of cages and escaping through vents. Basically, it got to the point where you couldn't tell who was studying who. A deliberate disciplinary choice in the history of bullshit. They got embarrassed by a dumpster puppy and refused to run it back. Honestly, raccoon intelligence comes down to two things. One is memory. Raccoons can remember solutions to problems they solved years ago and will just build on that knowledge. A different experiment involved 22 rats, 2 dogs, 4 raccoons, and 5 human children, and this time they'd face 3 light bulbs, one of which would briefly turn on, and the subject would have to identify which one after a delay. At first, the raccoons didn't do too hot. They could pick the right light bulb after a 25-second delay, but the dogs could handle 5 minutes. But what was quickly realized was both the dogs and the rats could only remember which bulb if and only if they were facing the bulbs the entire time. As soon as they moved around and lost visual, they lost the challenge. But raccoons could pick the right light even after spending the delay moving around and being distracted. The only other subjects that could do this were the children. Memory is important, but the second pillar of procyonid prowess is curiosity. It might have killed the cat, but La Poubelle Panda has been living off that. In my opinion, other than crows, raccoons are the perfect city animal, and curiosity is one reason why. They're neophiles, meaning their first response to something they've never seen before is to figure it out. That's how they turn what Toronto media flex as the marvel of ergonomic design into a 7-figure waste of everyone's time. It's almost impossible to make something raccoon-proof, since there's an unsettling overlap between the smartest raccoon and the dumbest human. It doesn't help that a rubbish warrior has hands. Fun fact, the animal called wash bear doesn't wash food, they actually wet their paws to enhance the nerves on their fingers, meaning raccoons can see what they're eating with their hands. Speaking of food, it helps that raccoons are omnivores that'll mooch off you, your dog, your cat. They'll food tax your entire family and hit the goofiest animation after. They'll try anything once, even if it means waking up face down in a liquor store. But what raccoons really eat off of is pretty privilege. Despite being much less of a disease risk, opossums don't get a fraction of the PR, and people who hate on coyotes but give raccoons a pass must not have the experience of waking up to a dismembered, disemboweled cat. In fact, intelligence in a face mask often makes you forget they're a predator tough enough to maul your family pet. And in the city, very few things can return the favor, as urban raccoons have almost no predators. Except for maybe an otter. Not like I think otters actually eat them, but to be fair, this does look very predatory. Other than Lila showing Rocket where everybody floats, raccoons are in that sweet spot where many of the things that would normally eat them are too big to really follow them into the city. Or at least if they do, they get all the smoke from humanity. Basically with raccoons, they're bigger than the cute animals, cuter than the big animals. But the last piece is their psychology. Experiments show that the quieter, more docile raccoons were craftier and much better at solving puzzles than the aggressives. Ironically, bolder raccoons were less likely to take the time to see how a device works, meaning not only are calm raccoons superior students and problem solvers, but calmness is the trait that animals need to survive constantly being around humans. It's also the first step to domestication. Which brings us back to the question, are raccoons actually being domesticated? It's complicated. Remember that it was wolves valuing our leftovers so much that it created selective pressure that favored less fearful, more people-tolerant wolves, and after several generations of these docile wolves breeding, you eventually got the breeding blocks that would lead to Shih Tzus, Pekingese, and someone's arthritic, crusty-eyed, semi-bigoted Q-tip. You know, there was a period where every single girl I talked to had one of these, and they did not like me. But a lot of people say that the mass marauder is at the starting line of the same process, and that the snout study only proves it. Just one problem though, that study is very sus. For a number of reasons. They used images that were uploaded by random people to iNaturalist, meaning I could have snapped a raccoon and thrown a pic up there and it might have ended up in the study. And then to avoid, I guess, duplicates, they limited the image contribution to 1 picture per person, which cut the picture pool from over 100,000 to just under 20,000. But they also had no way of knowing multiple people didn't just clock the same raccoon. And then, out of the 19,495 pictures, they cut it down to 249, 38 rural raccoons, and 211 urban. I'm guessing they filtered out for the best quality images to measure, but I feel like you can't mess with the numbers that much without severely kneecapping your study. Especially since they say they pulled pictures from 2000 to 2024, but only used the last 4 years due to a low number of rural data points. Basically, they're saying in 20 years they couldn't find enough country raccoons. That's a, I don't know. Look, I'm not even gonna pretend like I'm the best at reading these studies or making sense of the numbers, so I'm actually gonna link this creator's video. She's an actual actual raccoon biologist. She's the only US citizen allowed to study the Pygmy raccoon, and the creator of DashCon, which was some lore I was not expecting. But honestly, I'm not as worried about the numbers as I am the fact that the same study even admitted that raccoon snouts can be influenced by the climate, with them getting shorter as it gets warmer. And remember, I said domestication syndrome can come with shorter snouts, but also floppy ears, curly tails, etc. So they took one trait that arguably could be caused by the climate, and oh, I also forgot the way they did it. Some of the rural raccoons were actually living in urban areas. Again, I'm gonna plug Nessie's video. I feel like she did a much better job at dissecting this study than me, but the more I looked at it, the more it looked like an undergrad statistics project than an actual raccoon study. Which it actually might be. Now let's get to the real reason I'm making this video. I know I just pissed off a whole bunch of people by killing their raccoon reveille, but the thing is, I'm not saying raccoons aren't domesticating themselves. I'm also not saying they are. Let me explain. Domestication is a multi-generational, DNA-altering process that ends with an animal that kinda needs us to survive. They can't live in the wild, or at least they're not supposed to. Habituation happens on an individual level, where the animal's still wild, their kids are gonna be wild, but they've adopted changes in behavior to take advantage of being around people. When the early wolves became less afraid of people and more comfortable cleaning our plates, that was habituation. And habituation is what you see with a lot of these raccoons getting bolder around people, but they're not trying to become our pets, they're just trying to eat. Does that make sense? Like, you could argue habituation is the first step of domestication, but it doesn't guarantee domestication. A shot of jungle juice could be the first step to becoming an alcoholic, but one shot does not an alcoholic make. You can drink it without ending up in an AA meeting. And even if raccoons are on the road to domestication, you, me, our kids' kids, and even the spawn after that won't be alive to see it. And by that logic, raccoons wouldn't be the only ones. Plenty of animals have habituated to humans. Foxes in London have done infinitely better in cities than in the country, and some researchers even say that their snouts are also getting smaller, as rooting through trash has selected for shorter snouts with stronger bites to break through packages and bones. And black bears in places like Aspen, Colorado will regularly commute from the woods into the city to scavenge trash at night, and they've also gotten really bold about it, even breaking into houses and raiding fridges. Elephants in Thailand have habituated to the point of running things like the mafia. You got elephants stopping trucks on the road just to steal their sugarcane. But by far the best, or I guess worst example, is baboons in South Africa being so used to humans meaning an easy meal, now they expect it and will violently run your pockets. But no one's saying baboons, elephants, or especially bears are being domesticated, and black bears are just obese raccoons. I mean, some will claim that for foxes, but even if they are, nobody you know or will know will be alive to see it. And as cities continue to spread, a lot of animals will have to adapt or die. And credit, raccoons adapted the hell out of their circumstances. Raccoons hack the city game and there's nothing you can do to stop them. Toronto is considered the raccoon capital of the world, with up to 100,000 black-eyed bandits free roaming, which would technically make them the largest minority group in Toronto. And if the $30 million dud wasn't proof, these sticky-fingered city slickers are testing humanity in ways few other urbanites could. But at least raccoons make sense in North America. Somehow they've taken their act international to Germany. In 1934, raccoon fur farms were booming, and a local forestry chief released 2 pairs of wash bears to enrich the environment. The result was the raccoon population blew up. And not just them, because years later, a bomb obliterated a farm near Berlin, allowing 30 raccoons to escape, and today, there's an estimated 1 million rogues roaming the country. 1940s Germany yet still did not see that coming. But the most outrageous origin story is how they ended up in Japan. You see, after the 1977 Rascal the Raccoon anime, raccoons became all the rage. So much that Japan was importing over 1,000 a year to satisfy the demand for pets. And thanks to raccoons being some of the worst pets you can have, if they weren't released into the streets by owners, they escaped and invaded the cities anyway. If they could have just taken the time to finish the anime, they probably would have gained the insight that could have avoided all of this. Instead, Japan has been at war with an unknown number of raccoons, who aren't just costing millions of dollars in damage a year, they've done an absolute number on the already endangered Japanese salamander, while also severely outcompeting the very ironic looking raccoon dog. They can't keep getting away with this. But it's not all good for the raccoon. Habituation can be a problem for them too. As funny as a raccoon breaking into a liquor store and getting faded off the moonshine is, there are some unexpected consequences of them eating the same food as us. Like, did you know raccoons can get diabetes? Researchers looked into the runes in Ontario, and they found that the city variety had a blood glucose level more than double those in the country. Mom, I'm sorry, I know you don't like me cursing, but I cannot stress how badly you f***ed them over by feeding them. A masked up chonk is real cute until you realize they're having the same issues with obesity, diabetes, and other health problems. And remember, Toronto already blew an NBA player's salary trying to stop them. Not to mention the very real issue that raccoons go the way of baboons, where they not only lose all fear and respect for humans, but start getting violent about it too. Because I say it all the time, you could probably finish the phrase for me, but the worst thing an animal can do is what? Lose its fear of humans. Because while the original raccoon might seem far from extinction, there's another raccoon on the brink that you may not have even heard of. Because there's actually 3 species of raccoon. You got the famous common raccoon, but also the crab-eating, or South American, because they don't even eat that much crab, but also the Cozumel or pygmy raccoon. You remember how I said Nessie's the only US citizen that's authorized to study them? Well, she's seen firsthand what habituation, especially tourism, has done to them. Like while I was sitting home working on this video, she had to deal with a couple Cozumels that died due to habituation, likely due to the malnutrition of eating tourist trash. It's sad that there's only a couple hundred of these walking travel-sized trench coats left with, other than habitat loss, parasites and disease being some of the main reasons why. Reasons that definitely are not helped by being fed junk by tourists. But probably the biggest problem is that most people don't even know they exist. Like if you look up Mexican raccoon, Google will probably acknowledge the coati before the Cozumel. And it's getting to the point where if we don't lock in like now, the whole Cozumel raccoon community is gonna get canceled. That would really suck because I literally just found out about them last year. So to make a long story short, raccoons aren't domesticating themselves. And if they are, it's no more than baboons, bears, or foxes. And if they are, it'll be many generations before anyone sees it. And honestly, I don't think the scientists reporting on it were trying to be misleading because again, it technically could be domestication, but I feel like news outlets saw domestication and kind of ran with it. And then people saw that news and immediately started thinking they'll have raccoons in pet stores in their lifetime, and that's not the case. And you don't want it to be. I'm not kidding when I say a raccoon as a pet will have you hating the species, your life, and everything about it. Imagine an adorable but incompetent contractor that does awful work and then demands food after. That and they're liable to mangle your cat. Also, it's not good for the raccoons either. I can show you a graveyard full of raccoons that started as pets. And hot take, all exotic pets are bad. Okay, but I feel like opossums as an option are way more chill. Like who's ever been punked by a possum? And skunks are a low-key sleeper pick, like I'm not kidding, they might get a video next. But yeah, instead of obsessing over bringing raccoons into our house, we should probably try to save them while they're still out. And that's gonna do it for this video. Shout out to Nessie for helping me with this video while fighting the good fight. She's currently in an undisclosed location in Cozumel trying to save the pygmy population. I'm gonna put all her stuff in the description. Also shout out to Newsflare. A lot of the clips used in this video were licensed through them, so yeah, definitely recommend for finding clips for your projects. Also, I just wanna say, I'm not an expert in this. Like, don't think of me as a teacher, more like a student sharing his work with the class. And if you disagree with me, I have no problem with healthy discourse in my comments. In fact, I actively encourage it. Just don't be like weird about it. You know what I mean. Drink water, hug your mother. Stop feeding! Is this on? Hold on, please stop feeding raccoons. They don't need the help and your help's not helping. Tell a friend about the Cozumel. They really need the PR. Say what's up to your pops and I'ma see y'all in the next one.